Dan. Thank you for coming on to my podcast today. I've been skirting around this idea on inviting you. I met you through a public speaking forum, and every time I've seen you speak, it's always been full of humor. But you have caught me by surprise. Now, besides a storyteller, you're a dad. And if you had to share with me one thing, what it's like to be a dad, what would it be? As a way to introduce yourself.
Oh, well, firstly, thank you. That's a very kind introduction. Dad, well, I'm a dad of two daughters, and I think it's probably to describe it would be it changeable. It changes, so maybe it feels like, especially with daughters, that the changes just always come in, the challenges. Um, but also, I find it really inspirational. I don't think I was ever inspired as much as I have been in my life before I had daughters as I have been since. So, as much as I hope they might pick up some things and learn some things from me, I find I get so much from them. So yeah, it's definitely inspiring. It changes a lot, and of course challenging as well. Two teenage daughters, that's always going to be a challenge. Yeah.
Mm. So I'm a girl, a daughter of four, and a sibling, three other sisters I have.
Mhm.
I really felt sorry for my dad, but at the time where I'm going to be publishing this, it's about giving in a way, dedicating this podcast to fathers who have daughters. So it might come across a little biased to others who say, okay, I have a son. So I'm going to try and be as inclusive as possible.
Mhm.
I heard your speech some time ago. So, being in the public speaking sphere, you
Mhm.
had delivered a speech quite some time back about your journey as a father to your daughter. And one of your daughters has led a different life, has probably changed yours. And you have another daughter who had to experience that also. Can you tell me what that is?
Well, firstly, I think both of them have definitely changed my life, and both of them have got their own challenges and successes and stories. My eldest daughter Emily, she was born profoundly deaf, and so immediately that's a it feels like a challenge. And we actually didn't find out till she was one, which was, always looking back, feels a bit criminal that we didn't notice for a year. But I think it was fairly normal. We just thought she slept well. Um, but when we did find out, I remember the doctors kind of telling us she is profoundly deaf. She's got no hearing at all,
Mhm.
and it's almost like, as it turned out, it's not there are far worse things you can be told as a parent than that. But at the time, it was kind of all these things that you've imagined in your head that are going to happen, and these conversations you're going to have, and how you're going to teach them things when they're older, and suddenly that's all just comes into question with, how well will we be able to communicate with each other. And so there was an initial period of, oh, this changes everything, this is going to be a big challenge. And then, as with anything, it just, you kind of go on this journey and you live it day by day, and you learn a lot. And things happen that wouldn't have happened if you weren't on that particular journey. But we found out pretty quickly that cochlear implants had literally just become available in the UK, and so she could apply for funding for them and go down that route. And they're incredible devices, which, 50 years ago, if Emily had been born then, she would just have been profoundly deaf, and that would be it, and that would be fine too. But now what they can do, just so basically they kind of have an operation where they pull back the ear and put a processor inside your head, basically.
Oh,
And then,
wow.
she wears what looks like a hearing aid on the outside, but it's just something that's talking to the processor inside. And suddenly she has access to sound, and so that was a big part of the journey, kind of going towards that, building up to that, knowing the operation was coming. She didn't have it till she was 4. And when you've got someone who's been completely deaf for 4 years, and learning sign language, but at the same time having been told to try not to have her too dependent on sign language, because when the hearing comes, when the implants go on, you want to encourage her to use her hearing rather than her sign language.
So she could hear you because you're saying it's profound, so it wasn't completely.
Sorry, no, it was completely, yes.
It
So
was completely
for
okay.
4 years it was completely, yeah.
All right. And your second daughter, when was she born?
About 4 years later. So yeah, I think Emily was just 4 when Eloise was born. So she just had her first implant. But yeah, to go from, you think, oh, this is this miracle cure, she's suddenly going to be able to hear, which was true. But you don't go from silence for 4 years to hearing and speaking and understanding in a day. So that was the start of another journey, and quite a tough one, of persuading her to use these implants, because she could just take them on and off, and she was used to silence and quite liked silence, and often I don't blame her. But
Does
yeah,
she
so it
still
was.
does she still want that silence?
She really enjoys silence. Yeah, I think if given completely her choice and her life, she would never wear them. But she appreciates that when she's out at school, she's at university now, and those things, that it helps her a lot. And nobody's forcing her to wear them. I felt a bit like that in the early years, but we were always wary of not forcing it on her. It's eventually it should be her choice. But I think she accepts that is her choice, and she does. There are times when it benefits her to do it, and she wants to wear them, but she also loves her silence as well.
How is having, and what's your second? So let's go up. It's nice to speak about one daughter. You said you
Mm.
had two. Both bring different stories. What's the second one like? What's her name?
Her name is Eloise. Yeah, so she's 4 years younger. She's 14 at the moment at school. She's yeah, really good. No issues with her hearing. It was something we were worried about, because we didn't really know why Emily was deaf. Nobody could work that out. So there was a chance that Eloise would be as well, but she wasn't, which was, good news, and in itself just news, because if she
Yeah.
had been, that was fine too. And yeah, she does really well. And I was actually, growing up, I had a younger sister who's severely disabled, and so I kind of appreciate her position, that Eloise's position, that sometimes, you see the other sibling maybe taking priority in terms of attention. And yeah, I know that's something that you have to, appreciate and understand and live with, and get used to. So I think it's helped having my sister. It's helped me be aware of kind of maybe what her thoughts and feelings around that. But Emily is nothing like my sister in terms of the level of disability. So there
What
hasn't quite
happened to
been
your
that
sister?
same
If you don't
challenge.
mind me asking. That's
Yeah, she's since birth, she's just been severely autistic, and yeah, she lives with my parents, and they're full-time carers for us.
that's really interesting because you're making me want to go on so many different strands here because they all happen to be female. You're a magnificent storyteller. I know. You shared with me your PDF, which I'm hoping turns into a book. And when I was reading through it, what struck me was your power of connecting emotionally with others. You drop away all the technicalities and you're inviting a person to tap into their vulnerability, tap into their side that probably not many people want to show to others. Has that come from this tapestry of having to deal or having to be the supporter?
Possibly, yeah, yeah. It could have done. I know that, particularly when I'm giving speeches, putting speeches together, which I've only been really doing for 5 or 6 years. So it wasn't like I was doing this kind of thing before I had my daughter. So I can't say exactly, but it seems that most of the inspiration for speeches does come from either of the two daughters, which they sometimes get a little bit fed up with.
But besides the speeches, you're also a communicator. I mean, let's
Yeah,
put it under the heading of communications, right? You've
yeah,
been,
yeah. But I think when I'm kind of at my most communicative, it's thinking about the speeches, and I'm a writer, a copywriter, away from the speech, the public speaking side of it. But that's kind of in the business side of things. So there's not really that opportunity to show that vulnerability and go into those stories. So I'm finding with public speaking that is more of the avenue to do it. And yeah, it's Emily and Eloise where most of the stories seem to come from and seem to revolve around. And I think it is just those small kind of emotions that you can have in a day that might just be a second, and something will hit you. and then you'll realize that around that there was probably something quite comic as well, or something that can be seen as comic, and then you can merge that kind of fun aspect with the emotion that you felt, and I think people, they're the two biggest things that people connect with when they listen to a, whether it be a speech or just communicating in general. If you can make them smile and make them feel something, then there's not much else you need to do.
So when has both your daughters given you the most smile that you didn't expect?
So many times. I mentioned that I only started speaking 5 or 6 years ago,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't be doing it at all if it wasn't for Emily. So Emily, as I've said, she had these challenges. She was deaf. She got given cochlear implants, and she'd had them 2 or 3 years. She was 6 or 7, and she was just about starting to be able to kind of put sentences together. But at school, they had a Christmas show, like a nativity show. So I
Mhm.
went along to see it on this day, and I knew she was in it, and I knew she'd be singing in the choir. Uh, but I wasn't expecting any more than that. And anyway, at the end, they sang "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," and it was lovely and Christmassy and festive. And then right at the end, there's that line, the final line, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas now." And everyone just went quiet, and Emily stepped forward and sang it in solo, and it was just an
Oh.
incredible moment to hear a person who I wondered if we would ever kind of hear speak, never mind sing, and never mind sing in solo on a stage. It lasted a few seconds, but it was, sometimes these seconds can be more powerful than minutes, hours, days. And I'd always avoided public speaking. I was terrified of it. I wasn't interested in going anywhere near it. But in that moment, I thought, if she can stand up and do that, then I'm a 30-odd-year-old man. I think I can go and give it a go and maybe face that fear as well. So, and then I did, and we're here now. But if it hadn't have been for that moment, I don't think I'd be doing this.
How beautiful. And what did your other daughter inspire you the most that made you also feel like, huh, okay.
Yeah, lots of stories again, lots of fun stories. There was a speech I gave, and this is probably the most powerful moment with her. I'd been doing speeches for a few years, and we have contests and things, and I'd been doing
Yeah.
really well in them. But during lockdown, I was helping her one day with a bit of schoolwork. I think it was maths, and she struggles a little bit at school, but this particular work, we were at home. It was homeschooling during COVID, and it was. I'm not a teacher, so it'd been a long day, and I just kind of just a really brief snap, and I just kind of said, "Eloise, it's easy. What's wrong with you? It's easy." Which I instantly felt awful about. But the learning wasn't in what I'd kind of said to her, which was a lesson. But the biggest lesson was in her reply, and she just kind of looked at me and said, "Listen, I know that I'm not you. I know I'm not gonna go around winning things like you. I'm not funny like you. I'm not an amazing speaker like you." And it just kind of hit me that alls I'd been showing for these couple of years was, oh yeah, I'm a speaker now. Look, I win these awards, or I write these books,
Mhm.
these stories, and I'd almost kind of stopped showing any type of vulnerable side to me, and so when I criticized her, which I shouldn't have done, but when I did, the response was kind of, yeah, I know how amazing you are, and I'm not, and I'm sorry. And so what I learned that day was that I'm not amazing, and I could show you 50 videos of times I've tried stand up comedy and it's been a disaster. But actually, I've only showed you the video of the one time that people laughed because there was half price beer. Um, and
So how's
so,
that? Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
no, no, go.
I was going to ask you, how did that shape your journey to vulnerability almost? Because you've always seen others vulnerable and you've had to be the strength in the relationship. So whenever your family had needed your extra, you were there, the extra support, you're being there. But now it's almost like your daughter is inviting you quite the opposite.
Yeah, it was realizing that support and that strength can be and is vulnerability as well, because if she doesn't see that, as if young people don't see that vulnerability, and we're becoming increasingly kind of fake online, aren't we? And it's all about our successes. It's all about what we've done well. We don't show any of the other stuff. We don't go on Facebook or LinkedIn and say, I this really bad thing happened, or I finished last in this competition, or something like that. And I'm not particularly saying we should, but there is that side where if young people are only seeing the successes of others all the time, and they get it enough with their peers and friends, and if they're seeing it from adults as well, I think it just puts so much pressure on. So I realized that showing the vulnerability, and I have plenty of that, was actually helping and supporting and hopefully offering some strength too. So yeah, I think I'm much more open with that kind of stuff now. And if I go and do a storytelling contest and finish last, which has happened in the last 12 months, then I'll come home and tell her, and we'll have a laugh about it.
How have you found yourself constantly shaping yourself? So you have this way of doing it through storytelling in speeches, and you've done that for yourself, it sounds like, more than for anybody else. Everybody does public speaking because of career, but you've done it really to challenge your courage. Has there been moments also where you felt that as a father you might have felt like, do I have a right to say something if it's a situation, specifically if it was with a girl, or with a female conversation, as they would say? Or has that been different for you? What is your
Yeah,
experience?
I think that's changing over time. I think early on, when they were both young, and I was telling stories that were involving them, that I didn't really think so much about, are they gonna mind about this? They did know. They came along sometimes and watched the speeches that they were in, and they always enjoyed them, but I didn't give it too much thought. Now, even just in something like this, now every answer I'm giving, I'm kind of thinking, is that, would they potentially see this, and do I have to, just choose my words carefully and not say anything that's going to cause one of them to get bullied at school or anything like that? So yeah, there's definitely an awareness there to involve them, but also there's even if they're happy with something, there's a responsibility for me to make sure that I think it's fine too.
And how do you feel that today? Because I know, my father struggled sometimes being a father of four, in the sense that he'd be like, if he didn't know the answer, he'd go talk to your mother. And that was always his conversation. Go talk to your mother. And there's always that awareness that he wanted to say the right thing, and he didn't know how. And I do think some fathers go through that. Could you share any experiences you might think that, yes, why not think of it this way, or what you could do?
Um, I don't know. I've always found that kind of thing, not uncomfortable, really. I mean, there are certain
Okay.
things they would never come to me with, but most things they are comfortable to come to me with, and I am comfortable talking about those things. So I don't really have those issues, or too much to discuss there. Um, no, I know Emily came to me again during lockdown. She'd got asked to do a presentation at work, and at school, sorry, and it was online. It was for the class, and it was the first time she'd ever been asked to do anything like that. And obviously with the communication issues, it was a big thing for her. And so I remember then I'd just done really well in a contest, and I was going to like a world competition, and I remember saying to her, "Oh well, great! I'm going to help you with this, and I'm going to write this for you, and I'm going to make it really good for you, and we'll rehearse it." And she just said no. No,
Did
I
that
want to.
surprise you?
Yes, it really did. Yeah, yeah. Because it's always been something she's been wary of, and understandably, but it's not her favorite thing to be communicating in public, and so she knows how much I do. And when I offered to help, I thought, yes, she'd be up for that, but she wasn't, and I think rightly she wasn't. Definitely, but from I then saw the end result, and she was completely right not to take
So
any
what
help.
was the end result?
She did it, and she asked me if I'd sit in the room with her on the day, because she didn't want any help, but she wanted me to sit in the room just in case people asked questions and she couldn't quite, understand or anything like that. So she wanted my support with her. And so I saw a couple of others speak first, and it was just a 5-minute kind of talk about yourself. And so I saw a couple of others, and they were really good, and they had PowerPoints with photos and things, and I knew she didn't have anything like that, and I was really worried. And she started, and speaking, as we know, it's all about connection and making your audience feel comfortable. And she started and she said, "Hi, well, my name's Emily. As you all know, I answer to M." Well, I don't really answer, do I? Especially if you're standing behind me when you call me. And straight away, everyone on the screen was laughing. I mean, it wasn't hilarious, but people were smiling and laughing along. And then she asked if anyone had any questions. I think the questions had been playing on her mind so much that was the bit she was really worried about. So she went to it straight away before she did anything else. And one chap put his hand up and he said, "What's the best thing about being deaf?" And I
Oh,
thought that was a
beautiful.
really good, positive question. I loved it. I didn't know what her answer was going to be. But she thought for a second and then she said, "Oh, I think it's being able to go to the front of the queue at Disney World," which is a good answer. Yeah, she does. She does get to go to the front of the queue.
Okay.
And anyway, her teacher piped up and said, "Really, you get to the front of the queue for being deaf? That's fantastic. I'll have to take my granddad with me next time I go to Disney World," which I thought was a bit rude. But anyway,
God.
but her response. So I mean, this is just genius. I don't know where it came from. She's never been this funny before or since. So our teacher said, "Well, really, I didn't know you could go to the front of the queue for being deaf." And she said, "Well, I can't promise. I always take a wheelchair along as well, just to make sure." And everybody on the screen was just in fits of hysterics. And for a second, I'm thinking, "Hang on, is that offensive? Is that offensive? Has she just said something really offensive?" But then I realized, no, she's actually mocking the people who pretend to be disabled when they go to get to the front of you at Disney. Well, that's fine. That's an awful thing to do. Um, but yeah, and then once everyone had laughed and were really comfortable, and because as an audience, when someone with maybe an obvious disability is talking to you, there might be a level of discomfort, and she just that just dissipated with the humor. And then she spoke about the difficulty. She spoke about how hard it has been to make friends because she can't always follow conversations, and difficulties she has with work, how she's really scared sometimes at night when she takes her implant off, and the silence. And I know I mentioned she does love the silence, but also I can imagine when you've kind of taken them off and you're lying in bed, it's a dark time for all of us, and to not be able to hear anything, I can't imagine really what it must be like. But she went into those serious places, and people were hanging on every word. And yeah, it was just so natural, and it's nothing like how I would have helped her to do it. So I was amazed with it.
Yeah, what did you realize in that moment that you might not have realized? Because you're watching your daughter actually being a bit of an image of you. Because she's doing her version of public speaking,
Yeah,
first
yeah.
version of storytelling. And what were you going through when you were watching your daughter unfold in front of you without your
Yeah,
help?
obviously very, very proud and amazed, and absolutely loved it. It was right up with that moment 10 years earlier in the school play when she sang. It was, it doesn't matter whether your children have disabilities, whatever challenges they have. If you see them do something impressive, it's always going to move you and make you feel very, very proud. Also, it made me realize that a lot of time I'd spent in the year or two before helping others with their presentations and their speaking, that maybe there was a different way to do that, and it's less about kind of me imposing my way on them and more about finding their way and their natural tone, and getting what they want to say across. So yeah, on the family side, very touching, very moving, very proud, and then there was even something to take away on the professional side as well.
And for your other daughter, when has she surprised you? So I know you with the mathematics, she surprised you about, how she's viewing life. But when have you stood by and go, my God, this is what she comes forward with, her uniqueness that you didn't, maybe that you saw it in full glory? Because it's always
Yeah,
changing.
her determination is very impressive, and a determination to prove me wrong a lot of the time is kind of what stands out with her, which is good.
Really?
I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't cost me too much. It did cost me last year because she's always been really, and this is where I'm being careful about. I have to be careful about things I say or I feel like I do. But she's never been very good at science. Let's say it's the subject she struggles with most at school. And last year she was telling me she had this exam. It was January. She had a fairly big exam coming up, and she was worried she was going to fail. And I said, "Well, tell you what, if you can just get 50% or more, do your best. Try and get 50% or more. If you do, I'll take you out to your favorite place for dinner." And she said, "How about if I can get 75% or more? You have to take me to Disney World. Disney World keeps coming up, doesn't it?" And and I said, "Yeah," because I wasn't worried. There was no chance she was getting more than 75%. So I agreed. And 81% she got.
I like the spice of your daughter.
Yeah, yeah. I called up the teacher. I said, "Can is this true? Did she really get 81%?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Is there any appeals process we can follow?" And he said, "No." Yeah, last February we went off to Disney, and even there's just been there were things with her during that week. She was terrified of roller coasters, but within a day or two, we couldn't get her off them. Um,
So she's a go-getter. So she wants to move. Sounds to me like she wants to always stretch herself a
yeah,
little bit more, and that
yeah,
comes from inside, like you said, the
yeah.
determination. That's actually a beautiful. I mean, so beautiful to have that.
Mm.
I
There
don't
was a
know.
time. Oh yeah, I was just going to say there was a time last year we went to a Comic Con together. Like one of these things where you see people from D-list celebrities from D-list TV shows. She's a huge fan of the Vampire Diaries, and she asked me if I'd take her to a Comic Con. There was one particular actress that she wanted to go and see who was doing a panel Q&A. And so, yeah, I said I'd take her along. And she spent 3 months on this question that she was desperate to ask this actress. And she had it written down and she'd learnt it word for word, but she was really intense about this question. We went along on the day, and this had built up for months. And there was a microphone in the audience, and full of teenage girls. And the moment they said, "Okay, time for questions," it felt like the whole room ran towards this microphone.
Yeah.
But we were sitting right next to it, and so she was fine. And she stood up calmly, and then she realized she'd left the piece of paper with the question on under her seat. And it didn't matter because she'd been learning this question for 3 months. But anyway, she decided she needed it. And rather than just bend down and pick it up, she dropped back into her seat to then pick it up, except the seat had flipped up. So she dropped onto the floor, and like quite a thud, and it must have hurt.
Mm.
And she's sitting there and her head's down, and I can't see her face, but I know she's crying. And this is after 3 months of build up and excitement, and I'm looking at this microphone queue which is right next to us, and it's stretching like 50 people back, and there'll probably only be 4 or 5 of them who get to ask questions. And so it's all over, and she got up and she sat in her seat and head down and didn't say anything for the rest of the session. And obviously a lot of people around had seen it and were all asking her if she was okay and kind of being
Yeah.
sympathetic, but you don't want that really in that position. Certainly she didn't want that. She just wanted
No.
to be swallowed up. But as we were leaving at the end, somebody who'd seen it, a lady who was probably sitting behind us and had seen what happened, she tapped Eloise on the shoulder and said, "There's another this actress Summer Fontana is doing another Q&A tomorrow. You should come back and try then." And she kind of nodded, but I knew she had no intention of. And we were staying in a hotel, so we went to bed that night. And I woke up the next day, and she was sat there ready at the end of the bed and said, "I want to go back and ask my question today." And I just thought, when I was 14, if I'd have stood up in front of a huge audience and my kind of idol on the stage and fallen over, I would not. I would just be going. It would have affected me for years. But she went back, and she went back with a new question after 3 months of
New
having this
question.
question. She went back and she asked to this actress, had she ever done anything embarrassing, and how how she'd coped with it. And
Wow.
yeah, so to get the question from the embarrassment, and she got an amazing answer from this actress as well, who yeah, I mean, I won't go into that; it'd be too long. But yeah, that was a huge sign of her determination and resilience and spirit, and again also a little bit of wow, I could not have done that, and I wouldn't have been asking the question in the first place. But if that had have happened to me, yeah.
You know what's so beautiful about your story is that both your daughters are so determined in their such unique way.
Mm,
It is so beautiful because one daughter has a physical limitation, but doesn't stop her, and she works with it just to get heard and understood. And here's your other daughter who she feels like I'm not going to make it. I'm going to, she's hard on herself, but she pivots it in such a
mm,
way just to make sure she gets it, and I just think it's beautiful because, I think of my three sisters, of course, and we're all very different. But when you see us, everyone will tell you, you're all the same. But I'm like, no, we are very similar. But the
mhm.
way we execute our purpose is so different. And it's just beautiful in its own way. And I'm hearing
Would
this
you
now
would
as
you all have had similar relationships with your dad, or was that very different for each of you?
very different, very different. My older sister was always, she always felt like she had to take care of the rest of us.
Mhm.
And they always say that every child, first, second, third, fourth, have their own functions or they break different rules and stuff. Your second daughter is who I relate to a lot with because I would be very hard on myself, but I would just be like, I gotta make sure that I'll get this done. So there's a drive inside to rebel inside. And
Yeah.
my sister after me is again a very much a compassionate caretaker. So she's always wanting to make sure everyone's together, but she also wants to break the rules. And in her voice, she stands in a different way. And my youngest sister, her relationship with my dad was they all protected her because she was born with a complication.
Okay.
And so everybody it's the youngest one, take care of her, take care of her. So she had a very loving relationship with my father, but my father always struggled to treat her like the adult.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so there was always a difference. But did it shape us? Yes, indeed. It shaped us much differently as well. So,
Yeah.
oh, what is
Yeah,
the one?
maybe with it just being two, or maybe the fact that it's the elder one that has the disability. But I've not felt that kind of difficulty to treat Eloise as an adult. I don't feel that, which is I think it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, but it doesn't shine through. It to me, what it sounds like you have searched to be there for them in their own essence.
Yes. Yeah.
You've accepted them for who they are as they are. This is what it sounds like. And I like the fact that they both challenge you in such a different
Mhm.
way as well.
Yeah, they really do. Uh, I'm the eldest of four, and kind of got used to maybe having my own way, and got used to the other three listening to me. So yeah, it was a bit of a challenge when you've suddenly got two that, yeah, they might be younger than me, but they're not listening to me half the time, and actually they're right not to a lot of the time as well. So yeah.
And what was the dynamics between the four of you?
So I've got one brother, two sisters. Obviously, the youngest sister I've mentioned, so she's disabled and lives with parents. But yeah, the next one down's my brother. We get on really well. He's up north. All my family is still up north in Liverpool, so I go up there a lot. And then my eldest sister, yeah, all good. I don't really know how I describe it, but no issues. She's got 5 children. He's got two. I've got a couple. So yeah, we're in that phase with all the children at the moment.
Oh, that's lovely. So I wanted to ask you, will your daughters be listening?
Is it live now?
No, it's not live
Oh no.
now.
Okay. I was going to say there won't be now. Yeah, I think they will. Certainly Emily will come across it and tell me she's listened, and
Okay.
give me her feedback. And Eloise, I would probably have to show it to her, but she'd be very interested in it.
Okay, and I want to ask you also about your wife because I haven't. But I have one question, one thing I'd like you to round it off with.
Yeah.
What is the one thing you'd like them all to hear about their most beautiful selves that you would like them to hear today?
I think I think if I could, I think this is a journey for all of them, and it's a journey for all of us. If there was one thing I could just give to them, and obviously I can't, but I try, it would be confidence and self belief. I think, particularly with Eloise, but also in her own way with Emily, the sometimes seeing how amazing they are and how brilliant they do at things and how hard they work, and then how little sometimes that belief is there in those abilities that they've clearly got. And I know that it's something that I struggle with, and I probably didn't have all those things that they've got. So if I could give them something, it would be confidence and self belief. I think there's nothing more important than that. Certainly internally, we don't all have to show it on the outside and come across as amazingly confident people, but yeah, to get rid of all that unnecessary self doubt and just help them to realize how amazing they are. That would be the one thing I would love to do.
And for your wife, because she has walked with you on this journey, right?
Mhm. Yes.
What is the one beautiful message you'd like to share for her? Because this is International Women's Month. And what is the one thing you'd like to share with her
I
as a
just thank
woman?
you. She works incredibly hard as well. She's had a full-time job as a school teacher. She has the same, maybe even more so, challenges than me in that she's in charge of a class of children all day, and she is in charge, and they do what she says. And then she comes home and she has teenage daughters, and they don't do what she says. And so I think she finds that even more difficult than I do. But yeah, she's spent their entire time since we've had children in a full time job, and a full time job where she's given back, and as a primary school teacher, works far harder than me, both at work and at home. I can tell all these stories and make it sound like, I'm dad of the year and things, but really all the hard work, everything that makes everything run and tick comes from her. So I would say thank you for that.
Okay. So thank you, Dan, for coming today. I'm going to leave those three because I would love for them to hear that. And thank you for coming on my podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you. Loved it.